Hello everyone, I am Glitch and welcome to a series that I am titling What is StarCraft? Now the idea came up because many of my friends and family who have never seen or heard of StarCraft, much less watched a game of StarCraft, have been seeing my YouTube casts and have been coming up to me after, and instead of saying, "Oh man, that was such a good cast, that was so good," here's what I've been getting. You ready for what I've been getting? I don't get it. What the hell is going on? There's like these little bug-like things, and they're battling or something. And so it came to me. I needed a series of videos that would explain the world of StarCraft to those who don't know it, and so here it is. This series of games, or this series of episodes rather, is going to explain to those of you that don't know anything about StarCraft the basic structure of a StarCraft game. Real briefly, I'm now going to talk about the history of StarCraft just so you can understand why I love this game so much. Basically, StarCraft 1 came out in 1998, and it was an extremely popular game at the time. It was a very popular game worldwide, had a lot of success, but nowhere quite so much as in Korea, where the StarCraft scene became so competitive that they would actually start to hold major tournaments for a lot of money. And developed all kinds of things like actual stadiums where people would go to watch StarCraft and be entertained by these incredibly amazing players. Now that kind of popularity never came stateside or never did really hit Europe quite so much. But with the coming of StarCraft 2 in 2010, then that kind of gave StarCraft as well as Blizzard the momentum necessary to kind of bring StarCraft back into the public eye, and now in Europe and in the United States, we have been seeing a huge surge and a huge swell of tournaments and really just amazing players coming not only from Korea but from Europe and the United States as well. Alright, you are now looking at the main title screen for StarCraft 2. StarCraft 2 has two basic modes that you need to know about. First is the single player mode. This is a story-driven mode where you play a series of missions against pre-designed levels and pre-designed computers by Blizzard to progress a storyline. This is not what you see me casting when you see my casts on YouTube. What you see on YouTube is the multiplayer games. The multiplayer games are games that are played over the internet in many formats. You can play 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2, etc., and even free-for-all matches. I have just now loaded up our first replay to look at for StarCraft 2. Now this is a 2 versus 2 game that I'm going to use to just illustrate some of the basics of how a StarCraft 2 game is played. Now the goal of a StarCraft 2 game is simple. Destroy your opponent. Easy enough? Maybe, maybe not. But there are two things as a StarCraft 2 player that you have to learn how to manage. The first is your economy. The second is your army. So first let's talk briefly about your economy. There are two different types of resources that you need to learn how to collect in StarCraft. There are minerals, which are these blue shiny things that our workers are working ever so diligently to collect right now, and there are these Vespene geysers, which allow us to collect Vespene gas. Now, the minerals can just be mined by our little guys. As you can see here, they are just mining away, and no further refining needs to be done to these minerals. They are harvested as is. Shortly, you will see this player throw up a building over a Vespene geyser. This will allow him to collect Vespene gas. I'm going to speed this replay up just a little bit so that we can see him throw down that Vespene geyser. There it goes. So he has now thrown down a refinery, and he is now able to mine Vespene gas. As you can now see, this player is now mining Vespene gas. His building, his refinery has now come up, and his workers are now harvesting Vespene gas. Now, workers are for more than just harvesting resources. Workers can also build your buildings. As you can see, this worker over here is currently building a barracks. Now, what these buildings typically allow you to do is to build more units. So we use the resources that we collect to build buildings, which allow us to build units. Now, one thing worth noting is we cannot just build as many units as we want forever and ever. There is a supply count. Let's take a look up here in this top right corner. In this top right corner, you can see that 3 things are kept track of here. Our mineral count, our Vespene count, there we go, our Vespene count, and our supply count. Now our supply count determines how many men we can have on the field at any one time. Men or women, I suppose. We don't want to be sexist here. We don't discriminate. But yeah, we have Marines, which only cost, if you check out their tooltip here, only cost 1 supply. You can see that little supply logo, the same one that you see up here in this top corner. Marines only cost 1 supply. There are other units that cost more supply. But as our supply gets maxed out, we are going to need to increase our supply. So that is done by, well, it's done by several things depending on what race you're playing. For every race, it's a little bit different. For Terran, this supply depot that he's building is going to increase when that finishes. You can see that our supply just increased. So we can now build up to 35 guys, or girls, whichever one you want to call it. I would now like to spend a moment going over the 3 playable races of StarCraft 2. Now the first race are the guys that we've been looking at all along. These are our human brothers from the future, the Terrans. If we click on any one of these guys and look at their little portrait here, we can see that these guys are all humans. Humans are kind of the balanced race of StarCraft 2. They have units that aren't too expensive but are decently strong. They're kind of balanced in that sense, and they use weapons such as guns, tanks, and nukes to defeat their opponents. The next race I'm going to talk about is the Protoss race. Now the Protoss are a race of highly advanced aliens. As you can see, they warp in buildings here. They don't build them, they actually warp them in. And they are a highly advanced race of aliens that use lasers and lightsaber-like weapons and psychic powers to deal damage to their enemies. The Protoss units tend to be a little bit more expensive units, but they tend to be a little bit beefier and a little stronger because of their shields. So the Protoss tend to have smaller, much stronger armies than the other 2 races. And finally, we have the Zerg. Now the Zerg is an entirely biological race of aliens that use weapons such as claws and spines and evolve most of their units. All of their units are evolved from these little larvae right here. And all of their buildings are living and are created and evolved from their workers. Their workers actually become buildings. The Zerg tends to be a race of cheaper units that they can mass produce in large quantities and try to overrun their enemies with huge numbers of smaller, weaker units. Alright, you guys have now learned everything you need to know to go out and watch a game of StarCraft 2. Now, today we have covered very, very basic aspects of the StarCraft 2 game. We have covered the fact that there's an economy that you manage, and you have workers that gather your resources, which can then build buildings, which you can use to build army units, which you can then use to battle your opponents and to try to defeat your opponents. If you'd like to learn more about StarCraft 2 and more about the races, then please tune in to my episodes later this week. I am going to be doing a series of episodes that are going to feature each race, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the specifics of each race, and then I will wrap up the week with a little bit of a basic introduction to how to play StarCraft, and I will talk about the actual mechanics that you need to play each race. I hope you guys enjoyed this series. If you guys want to see the rest of the videos, please subscribe, please comment down below, and please just show your friends. Let's get this word about esports out. Yeah? Yeah? Let's do it. GG guys, glitch out.